My name is Heather Tomberlin. I'm a Christian, and I have autism. It's been a journey because it's not easy to live with, but I'm making it. And I've been learning that God made me to think differently for a reason. Hi everyone, Heather here. Hope you guys like the new intro. That's what I'm going to be using from here on. I thought it'd be a nice tribute to my dad because that's an old recording of his piano playing. So I thought that'd be a nice tribute to my dad. If you're new to my channel, he passed away a couple years ago, so a little tribute to him. So anyway, a few months ago, I watched the movie Rain Man for the first time, and I thought I would talk about basically my thoughts on it. So here's how I'm going to do this. I'm going to tell you a little synopsis of the movie, just in case you've never seen it before, or you remember when it came out, but it's been forever since you've seen it, you know, if you lived in the 80s. And then I'm going to talk about the positives of the movie, which I'm going to tell you right up front. There are not many positives, in my opinion. And the negatives, which there are quite a few in my notes. So, yeah. I want to tell you up front, I didn't enjoy the movie. It wasn't my favorite movie in the world. And there were a lot of things with autism they got wrong, and I'll talk about that later. And I also want to tell you that if you like this movie, I'm not taking that away from you. It's okay if you like the movie. It's totally cool. If you grew up in the 80s and you remember when this movie came out and it gives you a little nostalgia, cool. Just as long as you know that it's not entirely accurate and there are a lot of things that didn't age well, which I'll get into later. So now let's start with the synopsis of the movie. So Rain Man is about a man named Charlie Babbitt who finds out that he has a brother after his dad passes away. Sounds a little like what happened to Gru on Despicable Me. So Charlie goes with his girlfriend Susanna to a mental institution where he meets his brother Raymond, a man with autism. And after finding out that their dad's inheritance was left with Raymond, Charlie basically kidnaps Raymond so that he can get the inheritance because he's a bit money hungry. And at first, Charlie just hates Raymond and is annoyed by him, and just everything he does is annoying to him. But soon he just starts warming up to him and even starts wanting custody of him after he learns about his autism, or what people thought autism was in the 80s, you know? Because this movie was from 1988, so I think that's right. A couple of things that Charlie learns about his brother, besides his autism, is that he called Raymond Rain Man as a child. Because as a child, he thought that's what his name was. I thought that was really cute. Because, you know, Raymond's his older brother, and I just thought that was cute. But since Raymond grew up at the mental institution, all this time Charlie thought that Rain Man was an imaginary friend of his, not his brother. That he thought as a child was named Rain Man, but its name was Raymond. So he also learns the reason that Raymond is in the mental institution is because there was a time when Charlie was a baby and Raymond was trying to give him a bath, and he had the water on too hot and wound up burning him. Charlie figures that out after Raymond tells him about it, when he has a bit of let's call it a panic attack. That's what IMDb calls it in their synopsis, so I guess we should call it a panic attack. I will tell you this, he was freaking out once Charlie turned on some hot water while they in the hotel they were staying at. At that point, instead of getting upset with Raymond, Charlie comforted him. It was really nice. And then the end of the movie, it ended sadly with Charlie not being able to keep custody of Raymond and Raymond having to go back to the mental institution. There aren't many positives to this movie, but there are a few. There were a few things that were pretty accurate. One thing was sensory. Like, he didn't like loud noises. I saw a video on Instagram one time that said that whenever someone's autistic, most of them have at least one thing, one sense that's oversensitive. And that's pretty accurate. For me, it's sensitive ears. Also, I'm sensitive to taste. Like, I don't like any foods that's spicy or sour. You'll never see me eat a jalapeno or a Sour Patch Kids. Ugh, no. And Raymond Babbitt, he he didn't like loud noises. Like, he would get freaked out over this over really loud noises. He would, if there were times when Charlie would yell at him, and he'd be like closing one ear to block it out a little bit because it was getting a little too much for him. I think that could be why he got upset when they were about to go on an airplane. That could be one reason. Also because he kept thinking about how dangerous it could be because there were so many plane crashes, and he like knew all the plane crashes that had happened in the history. It was insane. I also kind of find it funny that whenever they'd show that back when the movie first came out, whenever they'd show that movie and on airplanes, they would actually cut out the parts where he'd mention all the plane crashes. Sensory is a big one. He didn't like changes. That is definitely a big one. I had a plan change just this week and I freaked out. You know, that can be very difficult for people with autism. I'm better than I was when it comes to changes, but I still have my moments. Like I said, this week a plan changed and I got upset. Because when a plan changes, I'm trying to think of how to explain this. So basically, whenever a plan changes for somebody with autism, it's like, it just feels like the whole world is just gone out of control, you know? It's like, well, when can this actually happen? You know, like if you were planning on doing something and then if you're planning on going somewhere, and then I can't tell you how many times I had my heart set on going to a restaurant, something that simple. And then we go to that restaurant and then it's closed, just unexpectedly. Like you wouldn't expect it to be closed that day, and then it was. And it's like, why is it closed? That happened one time when my mom and I went to Wendy's, and I was like, why? It was like a weekday, and it was like a weekday that evening, and it was closed. I'm thinking maybe it was staff shortage, but I was just like, why is it closed on I can't remember what day it was. I think it might have been a Thursday or something. I'm like, why is it closed on a Thursday? It just seemed so random. And then after taking some time to just chill, we were able to go somewhere else. And hey, it worked out. So another thing that they got accurate was that Raymond has something that calms him down whenever he's upset. That is pretty accurate, because I feel like people with autism need that specific thing that calms them down whenever they're upset. Something they're very familiar with. Like, I don't know, a song, or, you know, like whenever I'm upset, if I just have a quiet ride home with no noise in the car except for the car and music playing, that always calms me down. Just no talking, just listening to the music. And then after a while, I'm calmer. I can sing along to the song, and I'm okay. And yeah, and for Raymond on the movie, it was the Abbott and Costello bit who's on first. And he actually had it memorized, which, yeah, people with autism can memorize things pretty easily. Some people can, not everyone with autism. For me, it's just, if I watch for me, it's just like any other human being. If I watch something enough, I'll have it memorized, you know? Like the VeggieTales Jonah movie. I've watched that movie so many times. Last time I watched it, I was literally sitting and reciting it until a kid told me I was being annoying and told me to stop. I was helping out with the Sunday school. So yeah, it really helped him to have that who's on first bit to calm him down. Charlie kept acting like he didn't have a sense of humor. Like, there's this big thing of some people with autism have no sense of humor. Well, it's not that we don't have a sense of humor. Sometimes we just we just can't tell if somebody's joking. For me, that happens sometimes. Like, sometimes to this day, I'll still have to be like, oh, you're kidding, aren't you? Because sometimes I have a hard time figuring out if they're serious or if they're actually joking. Sometimes it's obvious if somebody's joking. Like, if I'm watching like a comedy show, you know, it's obvious. If I'm watching like a stand-up comedian show, or if I'm watching something like Whose Line Is It Anyway, or something that's supposed to be a comedy, you know, that's obvious. Sometimes when you're talking to somebody, they'll make a joke, and and there'll be times where I know they're joking, but there'll be other times when I have to be like, Oh, you're joking, aren't you? It just depends on the person, really. Yeah, that's one positive. There were a few things that were accurate. Not everything, I'll get to that later, but yeah. Another positive I have is the brotherly moments. I call them the brotherly moments. The moments when Charlie really started to accept Raymond. Like the moment when he was consoling him, when he got upset with the warm water, when he got upset about the hot water and explaining how he got to the mental institution. That's almost like trauma for him, it seems like. There's actually a scene that I really liked, and it was the scene where Charlie was trying to teach Raymond how to dance. Like, Raymond was insisting on learning how to dance. Charlie was very patient and was basically coaching him and letting him know, okay, I'm going to touch you. Is this okay? And I love the way he handled that. And then just basically showing him how to just slow dance. And it was a very beautiful moment to watch. And then it ended kind of sadly where he wanted to hug him, and then Raymond got upset, and Charlie's just like, I just wanted a hug. It ended kind of sadly. You know, most people with autism don't like to be touched, so yeah, he doesn't like to be hugged or touched. It's somewhat like that with me, but but I've gotten to the point where I'm okay with hugs now. If I'm really upset, I'll want no one to touch me. But if I feel fine, then I'll be okay with hugging. And my brother, before he died, we used to give each other goodnight hugs, and I really miss those hugs. Okay, this one's a little bit minor, but this one's just me. I love when a movie has a good score. You know, like the movie Spirit. I'm not talking about the Netflix Spirit. I'm talking about the classic 2000s Spirit. Sometimes I still hum that score in my head to myself, and the score's playing in my head as I'm talking about it. It's just such a beautiful score. I'm just such a movie nerd. I love it when there's a good movie score. And yeah, the movie score on Rain Man, I love that score. Because, you know, a score can say a lot about a movie. Like, it can sound a little bit silly if you're watching a comedy. It can sound really calm if you're going to watch a heartwarming movie. And this one's very calm. I really like that. Another thing, even though they got a lot of autism traits wrong, I do love the concept of somebody with autism changed this person's heart. Because Charlie was a jerk throughout the movie. He was a businessman, and he was a jerk to his coworkers, his clients, even his girlfriend. Like, why did she date him? And then he changes at the end after getting to know his brother, and I just love that whole concept of there's this person with autism who changed this person's heart because of the different way he sees the world. I love that concept. That is a really great concept, and I think that's what they were trying to go for with that movie. But there were a lot of things that they got wrong, and that is a great place to start talking about the negatives. All right, grab your popcorn. We're going to be here a while. Let's get started. The first negative, Raymond lives in a mental institution. Need I say more about that? I don't think so. The second negative, this movie started a lot of autism stereotypes that we see a lot in movies and shows now about autism. Shows like The Good Doctor, movies like, what was that one movie? I stayed with my aunt and uncle a couple weeks ago, and he was watching this movie about this boy with autism, and I can't remember the name of it, but I think it was from the 2000s, and yeah, it wasn't right. There's a lot of people who have the idea that everybody with autism is like a super genius. Like, they're so smart. Like, to this day, when I tell people I'm autistic, most of the time, one of the first things they'll tell me is, I know a lot of people with autism who are very, very smart. I'm just like, well, thanks. But yeah, he could easily memorize things. Like I mentioned before, the Who's on First bit, you know, he had that entire bit memorized. Like, he could quote it word for word. And Charlie gave him a tape at the end of the movie that had that bit on it, and he really didn't need it. It was the 80s. It was a VHS tape. And I honestly don't think he needed it because he already had it. He already had it memorized. I probably watched that bit 1,000 times on YouTube, and I still don't have it memorized. I can memorize bits and pieces of Tim Hawkins bits, but not an entire bit. You don't have to be good at memorizing things to be autistic. If you're diagnosed with autism, you're autistic. And it's okay to be autistic. It's very okay. I just hated that it acted like autism was such a negative thing to have. Because it's not negative. You don't need to be in a mental institution. So, moving on. Another thing, there's a lot of people who back in those days thought that autistic people, like all autistic people had a head for numbers. And there are two scenes where that was kind of explored. And one of the scenes was when Charlie kind of took advantage of that little gift that Raymond had to take him gambling. Yeah. And then there was another scene when the movie came out. I think this was probably the most popular scene in the movie because I saw a moment where Ryan on Whose Line was making fun of that scene. And it was the toothpick scene where toothpicks were accidentally dropped on the floor and he could tell how many toothpicks there that had dropped just by looking. Not even looking at the box, but just looking. And I'm just like, that is so unrealistic. Also, he only reads something one time and already he hasn't memorized. And in this case, it was the phone book. And then the waitress at that restaurant where the toothpicks were, all he heard was her name. And he could tell you where she lived and what her phone number was because he memorized the phone book. Okay? I think they went a little overboard with this whole memorizing thing. Like, I get it. There are people with autism who can memorize things very easily. Like, for me, with movies and, like, I met a girl with autism who only had to hear a song twice and already she had it memorized. Okay? But I think they went a little overboard with the whole memorizing thing on this in this case. So, another negative I have is there were times when they acted like Raymond was just plain stupid, just for comedy purposes. It was ridiculous. Like there was a scene where he was crossing the street, right? They have that sign up that says "Don't walk or walk," right? For people who could cross, for people who are crossing the street in an intersection, right? The sign flashes "walk." He's walking across the crosswalk. It turns to "Don't walk" before he can get all the way across, and he just stops. And then Charlie comes up to him and he's like, "Keep walking, you're just standing in the middle of the street." He's pointing to the sign. It says "Don't walk." It says "Don't walk." It says "Don't walk." He's a broken record basically throughout the movie. It's just like, this is so bad. He's not stupid. And if somebody were to let him live his life instead of stick him in a stinking mental institution, then he'd know. You know? It's not that he's stupid. It's that he's been spending his whole life stuck in a mental institution, living in a bubble. That's the problem here. He can't live his life because nobody will let him. Not because he can't. So, another scene, the scene where Charlie took Raymond gambling, he was talking to a girl. This girl comes up to him, trying to flirt with him. Letting you know, this movie's R-rated, so there are some suggestive stuff. Don't show this to your kids. At first, she's trying to be all cute, trying to flirt with him. Then he asks her if she takes any medicine with a prescription. What? Come on. Even I know that's none of my business. Who asks that? Unless you're a doctor, don't ask somebody that. Good grief. Like, come on. I've known I'm autistic since I was 10. And I know not to ask somebody that. This negative's pretty self-explanatory too. The R word, that word. I don't know if I should say that in a family YouTube channel, but I think you know which word I'm talking about. That word was in the movie, like I think I counted like 5 times. It was ridiculous. There is no word in the vocabulary that gets my blood boiling more than that word. I'm telling you. And if you're a Christian watching this, I'm a Christian, and if you're a Christian watching this video, there is a lot of cussing in this movie. A lot of swearing. It is R-rated, so there are F-bombs in it. I hated how many F-bombs were in it. I kind of count this as a negative, but at the same time, it's kind of understandable, or we wouldn't have had a movie. Charlie being mean to Raymond throughout the movie. You'd expect him to be mean throughout the movie. I mean, he was a I mean, he was a terrible guy throughout the movie, you know? But some of the things he said to him, oh, will you please act normal? Will you stop being stupid? Will you please stop acting like an R word? It was getting really a little much. There was one point where he straight out told Raymond, you know what I think about this autism? I think this autism is crap. He used the S word, but yeah, you know what I mean. But yeah, I heard that line and I'm like, ouch. You know, you'd expect him to be mean and call him names because, I mean, you know. But for a while, it was like every scene he'd call him something terrible and insulting. And it's just like, okay, this is not making me feel any better about myself. Thankfully, at the end, he learns his lesson. But gosh, for a while there, it was just like, okay, this is too much. So I mentioned before, one of the positives was that they show that he didn't like changes, which is common for people with autism. But here's the thing. I think they go a little overboard with the kind of changes he doesn't like. Here's an example. So at one point, Raymond is insisting on going to Kmart to buy underwear. If that's usually where he goes to get it, okay, fine. That's understandable. But but the thing is, he wanted to go to the specific Kmart, like a specific one. And he said the address over and over and over again. This is the specific Kmart I want to go to. This is it. It's like, I can't go to a different Kmart. I can understand him wanting to go to a specific store to get something specific. Like, I prefer going to GameStop to buy a video game versus Best Buy or Walmart, you know? That's okay. But here's the thing. They couldn't go to that specific Kmart because they're out of town. This is a road trip movie. So yeah, I think that was a little overboard. Like, I could understand him wanting to go to Kmart, but that specific one when they're out of town and he knows it'll take forever to get there, yeah, I think that was a little much. I don't know, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe there are some people who feel that way. Like, it has to be the specific store because it has this layout that I'm used to, you know? Like, if I go to Walmart here where I live in North Carolina versus a Walmart in another city in North Carolina, they're going to have different layouts that I'm not used to. And I won't know where anything is. Okay, that is understandable, but you kind of figure it out as you go, you know? I kind of like figuring it out as I go. It feels like an adventure, you know? Maybe not a lot of people with autism like that. Now that I think about it, you know, let me know in the comments what you think about that. Because it seems to me like they went a little overboard with that. But I could be wrong. Tell me in the comments what you think. And if Raymond were real now, yeah, he would not be happy with the fact that there's no Kmarts at all now. Oh, I miss Kmart. I miss it so much. Who else misses Kmart? Tell me in the comments. Here's another scene. Okay, this scene, I usually try not to be one of those people that gets like oversensitive about things that I see on TV. But this movie was just, there were some things in this movie that were just too much. And there was one particular scene where he was insisting that he wanted to watch People's Court. He's like, I have to watch People's Court. It's part of my schedule. Okay, schedule changes can be hard for people with autism. But his schedule, because he lives in a mental institution, is eating, sleeping, watching TV. That's it. That's all he did all day. He didn't do anything else. So there was this specific lineup of a TV schedule where I have to watch this now, I have to watch this now, I have to watch this now. Ooh, I can only imagine how he would feel on days when shows are interrupted by a news report. I imagine that's never easy for him. But that's basically his schedule because they don't let him do anything. He's insisting on watching People's Court. So Charlie goes to a house and pretends to be a door-to-door salesman to try to get Raymond into this random person's house. This random lady's house that has 5 kids. I think I counted 5 in the movie. He's pretending to be a door-to-door salesman to try to get Raymond in the house. And she's not buying it. And then finally Charlie tells her the truth. You gotta get him in there or he's gonna freak out. And he's sitting there watching People's Court and the kids are freaking out. because there's this random stranger in their house watching a show that's probably too intense for them to watch. I don't know. When I was a kid, my grandma would watch Judge Judy, and I didn't think much of it. And if Judge Judy doesn't scare a child, I don't think any judge show would scare a child. So here's my point with that. The fact that I took child development in college and it's my dream to be a mom one day. I hate the fact that the very first portrayal of autism had somebody scaring the living daylights out of children. I hate that. Yeah, that I found very insulting because I love kids. I want to have my own someday. I've worked with kids before and I've bonded with them. I've played with them. There was a time when I bonded with a child so much that after a few weeks of not being able to see her, I saw her again and she cried because she was so happy to see me again. She was literally hugging me going, Heather, I'm so happy to see you again. And she was crying and oh my gosh. It was so sweet. Oh my goodness. I still just melt every time I think about that. I'm pretty sure we're doing a lot better now with that. I've yet to see another portrayal of autism where somebody's breaking into a house just to watch a show. And the last negative I want to talk about is Raymond having to go back to the mental institution at the end. I hate that he had to go back to the mental institution. I hate that they acted as if he couldn't live his life. Like I said earlier, it's not that he couldn't live his life. It's that nobody would let him. Nobody would give him a chance. And if you give somebody a chance, they can surprise you. If you give them the resources they need. We have a ton of resources now since that movie was made. We've come a long way since that movie was made. But we've got shows now that really portray autism correctly. Like Carl the Collector. I'm gonna make a video about Carl the Collector. That show is amazing. I love that. I love that show. And there are resources to help adults with autism. Like there's a couple that have helped me. One is called Project Search. That basically helps people with disabilities. I really don't like that word. I like to call them different abilities. That helps people with different abilities to get job skills and life skills, and they can actually get experience with it by having by giving internships. Like I had a few internships while I was in that program, and I didn't always like what I did, but it was a good experience for me. And it'd be sitting at the house doing nothing all day. And then another one is called VR. It's not, it doesn't stand for virtual reality. This isn't a video game. This VR stands for vocational rehab. They actually give you a coach. They call it a job coach. And they actually help you just to get a job. Like they'll be there with you when you're having your interview, when you're having your job interview. They'll help you write your application. If they'll help you write a resume. Like I didn't know the first thing about writing a resume, and my job coach helped me out with that. And now I have a resume because she helped me write one. That's my point. If you give somebody a chance, then they will learn those skills, you know? They will learn how to do those things. And I realize that there's group homes now for people with special needs and so-called disabilities. Right now, I think we still kind of need them because we still have some research to do to figure out how everybody can get a job, how everybody can have a life skill. I can have these life skills of driving and people skills and, you know, things like that. I honestly believe that there are ways that everyone can have those job and life skills, no matter how severe your disability is. I'm hoping we can find some more positive words for that in the future. I'm also hoping that maybe there's more research that we can do to help people who are a little more severe on the spectrum. I'm hoping that maybe we'll have so much research that'll help anybody, no matter what they're struggling with, have a job and life skill to the point where we don't need group homes anymore. I really hope that that's in the future. I really believe that anybody should have a chance to live their life and get a job and get married and have children. Anybody should, you know, whether you have a disability or not. So that is my review of Rain Man. Again, if you love the movie because it gives you nostalgia, I'm not knocking, I won't knock it, but just keep in mind that it's not entirely accurate, okay? So thank you guys for watching this. I'll see you guys next time. Subscribe for more videos, and if you like this video, hit the like button. That is what it's for. And comment down below and tell me what your thoughts are on Rain Man and how it's aged. And if I missed anything, if you agree with something, if you disagree with something, tell me in the comments, but please be nice. See you guys next time. And remember, you were born on purpose for a purpose, and you're fearfully and wonderfully made. See you next time. Bye.